Hello, welcome back. Starting another little mini series. I'm gonna be looking through all of my games from Birmingham Chess Congress. Now, quick sort of introduction. This was not my greatest event. I play some very, very poor chess, and frankly, I make some moves that are just not playable of someone at my level if I want to maintain my rating. I am not proud of this event, and if you want to see why, then check out round 2 and 3 when they come out. And full credit to my opponents where it's due. They outplayed. They won the games. They found what they needed to find. They outplayed me, and I have absolutely zero excuses other than the fact that I was not. I was not. No, I have no excuses. None. All I was going to say is that I wasn't playing well, but it's not like I can blame anyone else for that. I just wasn't playing well, and I don't know. I found it a bit difficult to play in the heat. It was very, very warm in the venue, especially on the Saturday. But it's not like we weren't all dealing with the same conditions. They dealt with the same exact things, and they dealt with it better than me, and they kept their calm in time scrambles just better than I did. So, yeah, congrats to both of my opponents. Currently, I'm unable to find my round 3 game. I got that somewhere. I can remember most of it, but it gets into a end game, which gets kind of messy. So there are some moves that are like, when there are just small tempo moves that are played in different orders, and somehow black ends up a tempo up or a tempo down than they were in the actual game. So I'm hoping I'll be able to remember that, but we'll see. But don't worry about that too much for now. I've just arrived on the Friday evening. I'm really, really stressed at this point because one of my students contacted me just before the round started, saying that they have to take a bye in the first round because they won't be able to make it there for 5. And I was there like at 5? Because I was convinced the round started at 5:30. And then, just to put cherry on the cake, I then got off the bus and realised I'd put in the wrong postcode, and I was around a mile walk away from the actual venue. And at that point, I already thought I was like 15 minutes late, because if it starts at 5, I was 15 minutes late. So I'm sprinting over there. Luckily, it does start at 5:30. I'm only a few minutes late, and this is the game that proceeds to get played. So I start with 1G3, which is one of my new favourites at the moment. It's a very, very transpositional opening. I don't know if you watched the last episode of Durham, but I also played 1G3 in that game. And basically the point is, you play E5, I'm going to play an English, or like a reverse dragon, and if you play D5, then I'm going to play like a reverse Benoni or like a Catalan. And that's exactly what happens. We get D5, knight F3, I don't want to let them force me into a King's Indian attack. I want to be able to control the centre, so I go knight F3, we get knight F6, bishop G2, E6, castles, bishop E2, C4, attacking the centre, and inviting the reverse Benoni if they want it. A lot of people don't like that because the Benoni is quite tricky, and this is a version of it where I'm 2 tempi up, because I've got the white pieces, and eventually they'll have to go E5 at some point as well, so they've wasted a tempi on E6. It's still a totally reasonable thing to play, and the engine quite likes it. It's the top engine recommendation, but it's very tricky, so it's understandable from a human perspective why you wouldn't want to do that. So they simply castle, but this allows me to get a complete mainline Catalan, not allowing any early captures on C4 and not allowing any checks on B4 and retreating to tempt one of my pieces to the D2 square. So this is a very, very pure mainline Catalan, and yeah, me and my opponent were both blitzing out our moves at this point. I spend a bit of time on D4 just because I'm considering whether I want to go D4, or I could go for this B3 bishop B2 variation as well, which I've played a little bit. I had that in my game against Sophie Millet in the 4NCL. That was an interesting game. That's on my channel somewhere, I think. If you want to check that out, although she played bishop to d6 in that game, so slightly different setup, different ideas. But no, I eventually do go d4 and we transpose into a mainline Catalan, which I'm very happy with, because sort of this version is one of the more difficult versions of the Catalan, I think, for black, and it's generally very comfortable for white. They go c6, so a closed Catalan structure instead of the other main option, which is taking on c4 and playing an open Catalan. Totally reasonable. So I just go queen c2, defending the c4 square. They continue with their closed setup, knight bd7, makes a lot of sense, just reinforcing this knight, eventually maybe looking to put a knight in the center, but more likely just supporting c5 or e5 and keeping the position solid, developing pieces. Now I go knight bd2, yet again supporting c4 and supporting e5, and they go b6, just trying to develop their last piece into the game, connect the rooks. Normal principled opening ideas. This is all mainline theory. This position's been played. If I open the Engine Explorer, yeah, this position's been played 2,000 times in the master database, and the most popular move is exactly the move I play. Oh, no it's not. Sorry, I go rook d1, then we include bishop b7, and now I go e4. And this, sorry, yeah, I like to include rook d1 first, because sometimes this bishop likes to go to a6, and I'm a little interested in which square they would choose to put it on, but it doesn't really matter. Most of these lines transpose anyway. It stops me from playing a couple of critical ideas, but honestly, these are the setups, these are the positions I'm used to and comfortable with, so it doesn't really matter which move order I play these in. And now my opponent takes on c4. And now I take a big think. And one of my issues this tournament, actually, I think, is the time control. Because the time control is quite long. It's an hour plus 30, but it feels quite short. Because my last two events that I've played, I've had an hour 50 plus 10 seconds every move, and an hour and a half plus 30 seconds every move. So an hour plus 30 seconds every move. Oh yeah, sorry. And the other event, which was an hour and a half plus 30 seconds every move, I also got an extra 30 minutes at move 40. So this felt very, very sort of fast, and I also found myself in time trouble, like, much sooner than you'd expect. Like, and it wasn't hard to play in time trouble. Well, I mean, it's always a bit stressful to play in time trouble, but, like, with 30-second increment, I wasn't ever afraid of flagging, but it just made it very, very stressful to be constantly in this situation of, like, just being slightly aware of the fact that I was already getting down to, like, 20 minutes. Not at this point, but it was just very, very quick. Very, very quick. That I already felt like I was in time trouble. And we were all dealing with the same thing, but just given how long the time controls I've been playing with recently were, it felt quite short, and I've not been playing much Rapid or Blitz, or at least not over the board, so it was a bit sort of, it felt unusual to me. But yeah, okay, so they take on c4, and I was considering a couple of things there. I thought the move was take back with the knight, which is like the point of putting the knight on d2 to take back with the knight, whether they take on e4 or c4, but I couldn't quite remember if I wanted to play e5 first or later, or whether it didn't matter. And the only difference I could find is, first of all, if I take on c4 immediately, then after the c5 move, I have this option of knight f to e5, which obviously isn't an option if my pawn is on e5, but also, potentially, there are other chances of playing this. Once their knight moves, I can now go knight e4 as well, which was something I was considering, and I couldn't quite remember the theory here, but I know it's a bit scary for black, because I'm already threatening these knight g5 ideas, combined with opening up my bishop and attacking the h7 square. And you'll see these are recurring themes. I eventually do play e5 first, which I think is slightly inaccurate, like just considered marginally inaccurate. And most of the times these lines transpose into the same thing, but I don't fully commit to the idea of going to e4. I do actually take on c4 still. And if you're going to take on c4, there's no reason to not to play e5 first, I don't think. This is totally reasonable, but I think the move order I played in was uncalled for. So yeah, my opponent proceeds to go c5, makes a lot of sense, is generally considered in the Catalan if your opponent can get their bishop onto this diagonal to challenge your bishop and include the pawn break on c5, black's generally doing fine, if they can achieve both of these totally safely. So now my objective is to argue that they've failed to do this safely. There are a couple of options I was considering here. I was considering knight to d6, and the point of knight to d6 isn't to take back, but the idea is actually to jump with my knight to g5 now, and you have to go g6, I thought, in the game. I don't know, f5 takes on e6 looks very, very sketchy, even though potentially you get to keep the two pieces for the rook. It feels like you give up too much of your king safety. And then I've got ideas of taking on c5, opening up my bishop and my rook. It just looks very sketchy. And I was just worried that I was looking at these sort of lines and I was like, is this actually... Oh, wait, no, sorry. Maybe this just hangs c5. But I was looking at this kind of thing and I was like, okay, let's just say something like this, just attacking the pawn. I was like, is this really any good? Am I just losing a pawn here? Like, I couldn't make anything of my attack. And maybe I'm fine here. Maybe I have like knight e4 defending here, and then I jump in with bishop h6, and like knight f6, not immediately, but those kinds of ideas. Maybe there's compensation here. Let me check the opening explorer. Okay, this sort of thing has not been... Oh wait, no, this sort of thing has been played. But here most of the time people have gone knight b4. Okay, interesting. So white's got a reasonable record in this line. And rook c8 is... rook c8, okay, it just seems very interesting and relatively unknown, but white does seem to have quite a good record here, so maybe this is something to keep in mind in the future. So, sorry, my door keeps on banging, I've got my window open, so I think I've made some kind of wind tunnel. But yeah, so that was one of the lines I was considering, but I instead choose to go h4. And I don't think that the inclusion of h4, h6 is particularly useful for white, realistically. There are some lines where it ends up becoming really, really interesting later, but that was just due to sort of the stuff I noticed with engine analysis at a later date. But it's an interesting idea that I may play for in the future now that I know the sort of principles and ideas for it. But as you can see, black actually has a really, really strong record in this variation. And I go b3. And yeah, again, I think that this is reasonable, but it's kind of scary. Now, yeah, I was expecting the move that's being played in the master database, which is rook c8, getting on this open file, potential worries about b5 and c takes d4 in the future, but they play it in a slightly strange order. They play takes on d4 immediately, and I recapture, and their idea was that now they go rook c8, and there's no productive way for me to defend the e5 pawn, because I can't go queen e2, because knight c3. But weirdly enough, there is actually quite a nice way of defending the pawn. If you want, you can pause it, have a go trying to find how white can effectively defend the e5 pawn. In the game, I go bishop to b2. But there's actually another idea as well, which doesn't defend the e5 pawn, which the engine much prefers. Not much prefers, it likes in this position. So, yeah, don't worry too much about your e5 pawn. What do you think of the position? What move do you think white should be considering? As I say, I go bishop to b2 in the game. The top engine move. Take a second to try and find it. It's bishop takes h6. And if you haven't spotted this idea, the point is that knight takes e6. So we're doing a double piece sacrifice. I'll be honest, I didn't consider this in the game. I didn't consider this in the slightest in the game. And after takes, my queen jumps in. At the least, I have a repetition. If I'd seen this idea, then maybe I would have gone for this, if I'd seen the fact that I at least had a repetition. But actually, white's even got better. and they've got takes on e6, and the point is that when the king goes back to h8, you don't take the knight with the bishop. You can, it's totally reasonable, but take the rook. It's disgusting. The engine is absolutely ridiculous. And the point is that now takes, checkmate is threatened. On the board, white's only even down 1 point of material, because I've got so many pawns, even though I'm down like a full rook. But you've got to deal with the checkmate threat, first of all. Not a simple thing to achieve, and then even then, my activity and my 4 pawns on the king side are just very difficult to deal with. This is a crazy line. I didn't consider it. Mental. The engine is just brilliant and terrifying. Yeah, I go bishop b2. I think it's a much more human move, and the point is that now when they take on e5, yeah, again, I actually missed a move that is just on the spot winning according to the engine. I think I play the natural move. I go knight e6, and after recaptures, I pick up the knight and I win my pawn back. So I was happy with this. I thought my 2 bishops looked very active on both diagonals. My queen's jumping in, my rook's on this nice open file. I thought this looked nice for me. The engine, the disgusting engine wants queen to e2, which I can't even like fathom how you would start to think about this move in a game. But the point is that this knight actually just has nowhere good to go, like in the slightest. If you take the knight, which is probably the most natural move, I just take back, and oops, you're just dropping a piece. You're actually just dropping a clean piece, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a really nice idea, and if the knight goes back somewhere else, let's just say back to d7, for example, now we take on e6, and we take back, let's say king h8, just for the sake of example, we take back, and we're just crashing through. This is completely winning. This is, oh, sorry. Let's not say king h2. h8, sorry. That hangs mate into. Sorry. But no, just to show you very quickly what a mess of how this position can just fall apart. It's a really smart, nice idea. I completely missed this in the game. I go for what I think, yeah, as I say, is the more human option of knight e6, and after they recapture, I take this knight in the center. Now in this position, I think it's probably balanced if black chooses to play this slowly. I think white's slightly better, probably, just because of this weakness. And yet again, I think my pieces are slightly more active, but actually some of these things are still lined up in rather uncomfortable ways. So I thought this was tricky, and my opponent tries to capitalize on that immediately with this b5 move, which a lot of you might be thinking, yeah, doesn't that just win a piece? Which, I mean, so did my opponent. It's a reasonable consideration, but actually, I come to g6, and I've got this mate threat, and you don't have time to take the knight, because of course I take on g7, and I think my opponent saw this, and they were going to play bishop to f6, blocking the mate threat and attacking my bishop, and keeping the knight under attack, which is a reasonable idea, but of course now, this bishop's actually pinned to the e6 pawn, so they can't actually take my bishop, because then I take on e6, pick up a pawn, and I win back my bishop. So this actually allows me to go knight d6, which is a really brutal move to deal with, because I'm attacking the knight, the rook, I'm attacking the bishop, and worst of all, bishop e4 just threatens mate, and there's like nothing you can do about it. There were a couple of really nice lines here, like, yeah, for example, of course, if they move the rook, there's actually nothing you can do about the checkmate. Also, oh, I'm trying to remember the other. There were a couple of other options that I thought were really beautiful. Okay, don't worry about it too much. They go knight to e7, and oh, here I have a very nice move, according to the engine, which I missed. I'm supposed to take on f6 first, and if they take the queen, then I just take their queen, and they've still got a bunch of pieces hanging, so I'm going to be up a full piece at the end. But I thought after rook takes back, this was just an improvement for them. The engine... what was it the engine wanted here again? The engine... Oh, yeah, the engine just wants simply knight takes c8. And if they choose to take on d1, then, yet again, they're just down a full piece in the endgame eventually. And, yeah, I had seen these kind of ideas, but I thought that queen takes d1 was more annoying than it turns out it was. So I just chose to go queen to g4, which I think makes more sense. I'm attacking e6. Again, from a different angle, you take, I still have the fork, and I pick up the piece back. And that's exactly what happens, because actually, what else do they play? This is the other horrible, horrible thing about this position, is that this bishop's still hanging, this rook is still hanging, and this pawn is hanging, so actually giving up just the pawn at the end of the day is like, well, it's not just a pawn, because after the king moves I pick up the exchange, but giving up what feels like 3 points of material does feel like a big step in the right direction. And now it's all just about conversion. And like I said, it's kind of a short time control, so we were both down to a couple of minutes each at this point. It's been a lot of calculation that we've both had to do to achieve this position. So we've spent quite a bit of time, but as long as I keep the f2 pawn defended, I should be okay. And there are a couple of tricks, like, for example, in this position, they're threatening to potentially take on g3 if I move my queen, or they're threatening to take on h4, because if I recapture currently, then queen takes f2 I think is probably a draw. Or maybe even there's some dangerous ideas of bringing the rook in, but I think it should be at least a draw. Probably still winning for white, but I need to be careful, so I just defend f2 again. They bring their queen round to attack it from a different angle, and I just line up my rooks on the same file, and now my opponent goes all in with this g5 move, trying to open up my king, which is totally reasonable. I mean, when you're down 3 points of material, you've got to create chances where you can. I simply take it, throw in a check, and centralize my queen. Like, it's the rule that Magnus Carlsen always follows. Always want a centralized queen. They just simply control more squares, and when you control more squares, it's a better piece, yeah? So that's my rule of thumb. They go h5, trying to break open my king, and I offer a trade of queens. Now, they can totally take this trade of queens, but this endgame is going to be losing inevitably. My rooks will enter, double on the 7th, and it will be very, very, very dangerous for the black king. And it should be objectively winning, so they decline the trade of queens, but this allows me to trade off rooks, and after this h4 move, that simply allows me to finish off the game with takes, and g4. And I'm going to be winning this knight, and I'm going to be checkmating the king. I'm going to be up a full rook. So, in this position, my opponent simply chooses to resign. Big thanks to my opponent for the game. I thought they played generally very well. I thought their middle game was perhaps a little rushed, if that's fair to say. Like, I feel like they could have outplayed me. Like, I feel like I was slightly misunderstanding the positions, going for this h5 idea. And I feel like if they'd played these positions a little bit slower and just continued to apply pressure, I feel like they might have been able to outplay me here. Like, I don't think you need to rush into taking on e5, and I definitely don't think you need to rush into playing b5. I think if my opponent had taken their time a little bit more, not like their time on the clock, well, actually maybe their time on the clock, they were playing very quickly, but like slowing down how they were playing. Like, these are all very forcing moves, and if they could just see that my position was a little uncomfortable, then maybe they would have been happier to just play a couple of slower moves and force me to find a way to play, which could have pushed me into more time trouble, and then who knows, I could have fallen apart. I thought my opponent genuinely played a pretty solid... well, they played perfect opening, and then a nice early middle game. It was just sort of this late middle game where they decided to play it critically. I guess that they thought that they were winning, but I've got just enough resources to get me out, and actually it puts them in quite a little bit of trouble. No, but thank you for the game. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's very interesting, and I think it's got a lot of tactical ideas that are worth further analysis, just so I understand them well for my future games in the Catalan. I hope everyone who was watching enjoyed. I hope everyone has a nice day. And yeah, I should be posting the next episode of Birmingham Congress tomorrow. Merry Christmas.